This is Gregory Morgan, and you're watching Love Talk. It is a human need to have love and acceptance, to share love, to give love and affection, belonging to others. You don't need me to tell you that that's where human beings fall down the most. This is where we are failing as a species, and that failure as a species to truly and profoundly connect with other human beings and to have meaningful and fun and enlightening relationships that take us deeper into the purpose of our lives, so that each person in the relationship is for the other's fulfillment, is there for the other to be fulfilled. What is fulfillment? People use this word, but they don't actually question what the word means. What is fulfillment? Fulfillment is when you have enough, you are satisfied, you are complete, you are content. Fulfillment doesn't necessarily mean that you're joyously jumping on the rooftops all the time, but it could include that. Fulfillment means that you are living your life's purpose. And if you don't know what I mean by that, then let's have a talk about what is the purpose of your life. This is one of the most ancient questions ever. Why am I here? Why am I here? That's at the bottom of a stack of a whole lot of things, but most people never even actually get to that question. They're so concerned with the outer fixings and situations and circumstances of their life, and they're dealing with what we call putting out fires, dealing with emergencies constantly. If you look at your own life, there's things that are in your schedule that you said you would go do. There's things that you have to do. And then there's a bunch of other stuff that you don't expect, but it comes up, and so it sort of occurs as an emergency, or there's things that you've put off. And so where in your life, if you look at your schedule, where in your life is there something is there a time blocked off, if you will, called fulfill my life's purpose? Discover and fulfill, work towards living my life purpose. And if that lives for you out there in the future, like someday, I invite you to look onto the calendar and notice that there's no day. There's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but there's no someday. However, that's someday is where 99% of people are living. Almost everybody is living in someday. Someday I'll have more money. Someday I'll lose the weight. Someday I will have love in my life. Most people are living in someday, and of course someday doesn't exist. Someday is not on the map. It's not in the calendar. If you're really honest with yourself, you're not living. If you're really honest with yourself, you are surviving today and tomorrow, having survived yesterday and the day before. My point is, life is about either surviving, getting by, just existing, or it's about truly living. At Embrace Growth, we have a tagline called Embrace Growth, living a legacy of love. We're not leaving, we're not waiting until we're gone to have this legacy. We creating this legacy now in our lifetime and living it. It's not going to be something that people will report on later, although that may happen. That's not what we're counting on. It's going to be from our life today. In a codependent relationship, there may be love, but it would not be a definition of love that would be fulfilling. We were talking about happiness and fulfillment and being satisfied with your life and discovering the purpose of your life. Well, a codependent relationship does not give you access to that. It'll have you living a false purpose. It will have you living a default purpose. The default purpose of your life and my life, in other words, the purpose that comes hardwired in a human being as it does in any animal, is to stay alive. To stay alive and to move away from pain and to move towards pleasure. That's basically the basic program model that all of us has inherited. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Thank God we have that because, we're still alive. And if we didn't have that, the entire species would have been lost to history a long time ago. So human-animal portion of ourselves, we have human animal and human being. The human-animal part of ourself is only concerned with its survival. And here's where it's clever. This is why it's more sophisticated. This is why it can fool you. It is concerned with its survival, but not just eating and breathing and having sex and staying alive, it's more sophisticated. This is part of what separates us from animals. It wants the survival of itself and anything that it considers itself to be. See, as human beings, we have this kind of awareness that can consider things that don't exist. We can consider a future. Now, other animals don't consider a future. They see how things work, and there's a certain level of abstract thinking in that they can predict that if this happens, that's going to happen, but they're not even thinking, that's just instinct. But human animal, it can think things through and predict how things are going to turn out. That's why we can invent things like weapons, traps to catch food. That's how we ended up dominating all the other animal species, is through our abstract thinking and our ability to consider something. To have intuition. Intuition is really just a big stack of a huge memory bank, if you will, subconscious memory bank of previous experiences. So much of what we call intuition is a whole bunch of other experiences added up, and our mind can very quickly assess a situation and project how that's going to turn out and then make judgments based on that. So it searches for the answer of how did I survive this in the past? What's the most likely solution that will work right now in this current situation so that I survive it as well? I'll have you notice that I've used the word survival a lot, but I never once said happiness. You see, this part of us, this animal part of us that is survival based, has no consideration for your happiness at all. It doesn't have any consideration for your happiness. Therefore, it has very little consideration for anybody else's happiness as well. Alliances, relationships, codependent relationships, are alliances that are made on what is the unspoken question, the unrealized question, the subconscious searching for what is the most likely relationship or thing to say or do or person that would have me survive this situation in the moment. Now, in a codependent relationship, there's always one who is addicted to something. In the Persian community, the word addicted is a very big and fearful word that nobody likes to use. But every one of you, me included, is addicted to something. You're addicted to coffee. You're addicted to television. You're addicted to computers. You're addicted to psychology. You're addicted to education. You're addicted to things. In other words, something that you keep doing, even if everybody warned you not to do it, or even if you feel like it's affecting your livelihood or your health or your financial situation or your relationships or your ability to relate to other people, you keep doing it anyhow. It is a compulsion. It is a biochemical response to a survival impulse. That's what an addiction is. It's a biochemical response to a situation that feels threatening. Now, whether it's threatening or not is to be seen, right? You may feel threatened by your financial situation, but you're addicted to gambling. You may feel like you're not good enough at your job, but it may make you want to smoke or eat more. The response to the impulse is never one that's going to handle the impulse. Do you understand it? It's a temporary fix at best. It's a biochemical urge. An addiction is an urge or a compulsion to do something in spite of the consequences. All addictions eventually end in death. So I've now talked about addictions and death, two totally forbidden subjects in the same sentence. So in a codependent relationship, there is something that's got a depth grip on one of the two, and then the other one is got a death grip on the addict. So there's always that's why we call it a master-slave relationship. The master appears to be in charge, but in fact they are a slave to their addiction. And anybody that is addicted or addictable cannot possibly be completely committed to another person or to a relationship because their addiction is bigger than they are. Their addiction will say what they're going to do or not, and they don't have a control over that. The addiction doesn't care about their life. It's killing them, the addicted person. The addiction doesn't care about their life, and it sure as heck doesn't care about the other person. Okay, so in a codependent relationship, then there's always a support person. There's a person who is actually making the conditions, whether it be making a household, making dinner, allowing them to come home late, whatever it is that they're doing that is harmful to them and to the relationship, there is a support person, an enabler they call them, an enabler that is allowing that to happen and creating a condition where it can continue to happen and even keeping it a secret to others. The reason we call it a 100% versus zero relationship is because in those relationships, the addict is the 100% and the zero person is the support person, like a slave that is enabling this person to continue to this kind of self-damaging, self-inflicted, deathly, ultimately, behavior. Now that I've described that a little bit, can you see how that would not be a healthy relationship and how it is a model that has been accepted and handed down? No, nobody's described it perhaps like I just did, but that's the underpinnings of a codependent relationship, and it is in all of the songs and all of the books and all of the romance stories. In fact, the word romance means it's a story. Back in the time of Roman days, right, when the Romans ruled a large part of civilization, there was no story about how it is except what the Romans said. The Romans said how it was. There was no history except Roman history. Part of their thing was to destroy the history of other cultures so that his story, that's what history means, his story. Okay, it's not her story, it's his story. So that the stories that would be told, in fact, this has been a tactic of many warriors over the years, is to, after they annihilate an entire village or country or army, they always leave a few alive so that they can go tell the others what happened, his story. So that's how history has been made. A Roman or romance, in French, the word for romantic story is called a roman, a Roman. So if you were going to read a romantic novel, they would call that a roman. So romantic stories are just that. Romance is based on a romantic story. It's a story. It's a story one tells oneself. So in those romantic stories, in those codependent romances, in those books, poems, songs, novels, there's always a hero, one who supports the hero and one who gets left behind, and there's always this unfulfilled love. And if the love is ever fulfilled, what do? They sail off into the sunset, or they go away together, and that's the end of the story. We never see what happens to that couple, that romantic couple, once there's children and bills to pay and laundry to do and groceries to buy. We never see what actually happens to them later, because that would destroy the romance. That would be the end of the romantic story. So they always end the story when the couple goes off into, and then your mind fills in the gap. Your subconscious mind imagines that it continues going like that. Take all that data about codependent relationships, and let's put that on the side for a moment. And what do we mean by interdependent relationships? Sometimes you have independent relationships. You could have a relationship where you do your thing and I'll do mine, and that's it. We'll just go about our business. People tried that, and people still do that, where they have what they call an open marriage, where it means a marriage that's not monogamous. It's a marriage in which each person goes off and kind of does their own, but then they share the bills, they share the house, they share the kids or whatever, and they live in the same, they occupy the same space, but each one goes off and does their own thing. I've never, ever, in all the years of my life, seen that work in the long term. It doesn't seem to work out in the long term. I've seen some relationships that have worked like that when the two people live in separate houses. I know a couple in France that raised a son. They lived down the street from each other. They loved each other very much. They would have dinner together every night. They raised their son together, but each one went off to their own house in the evening and lived there and maintained separate households, did whatever they did on their own time. I was kind of astonished at that, but the son was a friend of mine, and he told me how this worked, and he thought it was great as a son. He thought that's fine. He just grew up in that kind of a household and seemed to work for him. So I can say that I've seen something like that work, but not. I've never seen it work where two people live like that in the same household. So that's led us to the conclusion that a monogamous relationship where two people love each other and devote their time, money, energy, and sexuality to that relationship. I did not say to each other. I didn't say that. Each one of them devote their resources to the relationship. And the relationship takes on a life of its own, an abundance of its own, a synergistic, energetic awakening of its own that gives life to each individual so that they go and each of them has an independent life, but they choose to depend on each other because they can afford to, because they can trust each other, because each one of them is trustworthy, self-reliant in their own measure. We have a call coming in. I'm going to go ahead and take that call. Hello, this is Gregory. You are live on the air with Love Talk.
Hi, Mr. Gregory. Thank you very much for your amazing talks. I always listen very intently.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Or have been keeping me from talking to this person again.
What's been keeping you from talking to the person again?
Because most people are telling me that he might not treat me with respect if I talk to him again or if I approach him. Well, I did mention that I had a concussion, but I didn't really emphasize on the fact that I was actually in severe physical pain, and he wasn't paying attention at all. I did use the word brainwash. It was actually, I don't know if you took it very seriously or not, but I did actually end up forgetting that it started from a misunderstanding. I was trying to correct his misunderstanding, and he was going on and on, asserting whatever assumptions he had or whatever he wanted me to think. And I did end up forgetting completely what the reality was, and it took me a few weeks to remember and understand exactly what happened, and it was extremely traumatizing to me because I was in severe physical pain, and he wasn't paying any attention, and everything that he said got me very confused. And
it sounds to me like you are what I call looping. A loop is like if you took a piece of film and you taped the ends together and it just played the same thing over and over.
Correct.
Yeah, so you're still looping. You're still going round and round with yourself about this conversation, and you're even repeating and using some of the same words over and over like a loop. And when people are looping, what I know is that they don't feel that their communication is getting across for some reason, and often it doesn't get delivered because there's something that is incongruent or inconsistent in your own mind. And you're thinking that if you keep saying it over and over, that somehow it'll make it true. So you don't believe it yourself, is what I'm saying.
Is there something that I'm not being honest about?
You tell me.
One of the things that I didn't mention is that his response to me asking for a conversation was that he has a 7-year-long relationship with his girlfriend, but it's very, very, very obvious that he has never had a relationship with anyone, and it's very obvious to everyone so it was obvious at the time, even to himself.
Why is it obvious? What's obvious about it? Is there some sign that you could know that somebody's had a 7-year relationship or not? I can't. So I'm just wondering, what's your secret?
I think that's because I see that he's very, very uncomfortable interacting with women. Also,
what's your evidence for that? So the only person that would ever be attracted to you is somebody who's never had a relationship with a woman? Is that what you just?
No, I mean, he just generally acts if he's never had an experience even talking to other women much.
And have you had an experience with other men?
No, I haven't. But
so how would you know what that's like?
To them.
Now, I'm pressing in and questioning your evidence procedure, you see. Maybe you've seen a watch or something. You've seen that people have watches, and you see that they, look at them a lot, and you like how they look. And so you go to a watch store and you want to see a watch. You proceed to tell the watchmaker, well, I could tell that this watch was not. What's your authority? Where do you get the wherewithal to know whether anybody has had anything? And I mean that. I mean, I've interacted with thousands and thousands of people. And so it's safe for me to say that I can pretty much assess a lot about a person from any number of clues. their eye movements, their skin tone, how they're dressed, how they're sitting, the words they use, the speed with which they speak, the overall syntax of their speech pattern. There's a lot I can tell about a person, but I wouldn't bet my life on it. Do you know what I mean? It's not 100% accurate. I have to ask a series of questions in order to sort of really come to the truth about it. So the more point blank, the more to the point I can ask those questions, the better are my chances of getting accurate information, you see. So unless he has ever told you, I've never had a relationship with another woman, you don't know. And if he says, I have had a relationship with another woman for 7 years, then you don't have any way of knowing whether that's true or not, really. The whole basis of this conversation that you're having with me seems like there's a lot of projection, imagination, make-believe, and I'm going to tell you the truth. I suspect some of it's just completely made up.
By made up, you mean that I'm actually lying to you right now?
Well, to a certain extent, maybe you're lying to yourself, but I mean, it seems like you tell yourself stuff and then assert it as if it was the truth, and everybody knows, but wait a minute. I'm questioning that. Yes, I am questioning that. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying that how reliable is the information that you're giving me? I had an accident. I had head trauma. I was in a lot of physical pain, but I forgot that part. Then he hypnotized me. No, he didn't hypnotize me. He brainwashed me. He thought that I was attracted to him, but really he's the one that's attracted to me. Then in our last conversation, I remember you finally did admit that you are attracted to him.
No, I am. But,
yeah, but at first you were saying that you're not. At first you were saying that you were not and that he was just imagining that you were. So do you understand that the source of this information is questionable? So I'm questioning you. What actually happened if there was a video camera on the wall and saw the interaction? Even now, still, a few weeks later, basically my coaching to you is go have an honest conversation with him, which you didn't do. And now you've come back. I said, do you have a question? But you haven't asked it yet. You've just started looping and telling me the same thing you told me 5 weeks ago.
Yes, my question is, should I go and have a conversation with him? Because through my family members and people who I've told the entire story in more detail and everything before and after, and people who know me just tell me that I shouldn't even approach him because he was acting very inappropriately. And
what was inappropriate about his behavior?
Well, I don't. The only way that I can justify how he was completely ignoring the fact that I was in a critical state of health is that maybe he was focused on something. So otherwise, I don't know why he even was talking to me. He should have sent me home or to a hospital. Yeah,
so again, I've asked you what was inappropriate about his behavior. What would be seen by a video camera? If there was a hidden video camera recording the whole thing, what would be seen? In other words, the reason I asked that question is to try to get your mind centered in what actually happened. You talked, he talked, you talked, he talked. What would we see if we were spying on you? What would be seen and heard? You said some words, he said some words. Did he touch you? Did he put his arm around you? Did he invite you to come to his apartment? In other words, what was inappropriate?
At the end of it, he got up and rushed towards me and to physically threaten me, and he shouted, "You and I are never going to be together."
Okay, that was inappropriate?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what would have a man, how old was he?
He's 34.
And you are?
28.
Okay, so what would have a 34-year-old man say this to a 28-year-old woman in a way that apparently, if he rushed towards you and said it loudly, was trying to make an impression on you? So, I mean, it sounds like a kind of forceful rejection by somebody who was trying to get his point across.
Sure, I understand that, but before that, he kept, I wasn't saying much of anything at all. I was mainly speechless, and he kept saying, "So you were planning to approach me, and you finally did." And I said, "No, I wasn't." And it's true, I'm not lying at all. It's true, I was never planning to approach him. And then he was saying, "You asked me if I reciprocate your feelings," and I said no. And I never said anything remotely similar to that. I'd never said anything about anything.
So you're now telling me that this man who you like,
yes,
who you're attracted to, who obviously isn't attracted to you and is rejecting you, okay, as painful as that might be, he rejected you. So you're telling me that this man who rejected you, that you are attracted to,
Yes,
made
but
up.
previously,
Hold on.
I
You're
mean-
telling me that he made it up. He completely fabricated out of thin air and lied to your face by saying you've been thinking about approaching me and you finally did. That was a lie.
I wasn't thinking about approaching him, and also I should also add that I looked horrible. I looked very scary, and he wasn't at first when I showed up to the meeting. He wasn't looking up at me. He seemed extremely excited, and he couldn't even control himself. And he was talking to me while looking down. And as soon as he looked up and saw me, his personality and his behavior and his respect towards me completely changed. So I think that all of his, whatever his feelings or thoughts towards me previously, he was also pursuing me previously in a way that was kind of unprofessional. And for example, I was sitting somewhere just studying, doing my own work, and he would very, very obviously come pass by me and try to get my attention, maybe up 20 times in 5 minutes. And I mean, I'm not making that up. So I know that
20 times in
his
5
behavior
minutes.
changed as soon as
That would be about every 20 seconds.
I mean, I'm sorry if I'm just miscommunicating that, but I think you get my point.
Well, I get your point, but 20 times in 5 minutes, that's about, and very obviously trying to get my attention. Did he say anything to you like, hey, I'm here?
Just
No.
more than that, he even tried to
Now, isn't this guy a teacher?
yes.
And aren't you a student?
No, I graduated. Actually, this is after my graduation, so I'm.
So why were you
there,
studying if you're not a student?
Just looking to.
Why were you studying if you're not a student?
Yes, I'm allowed to be in the school environment until I'm working somewhere.
Okay, so what were you there studying in the school environment after you had already graduated, which in and of itself is a little unusual?
Because we've learned so much, and we need to keep working on our projects.
So you have to go work where this guy is that you're attracted to, and he keeps trying to get your attention. See, I think that honestly, I don't think that you're being honest with yourself. Okay, and I don't know why you're still looping and struggling about this. You know, and if I just answered your question, we would be done a long time ago. Because I said the last time we had this inquiry, you need to have an honest conversation with them so that you get it complete for yourself. That will have you stop looping. If you flip on a light switch and the light doesn't come on, and you keep flipping it on and off and 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 on and off, and it never comes on, at some point it begins to be a little bit insane, you see? And what there needs to be is either, you need to get a light bulb or an electrician and make it so that when you flip the light switch, it goes on. Now, when you flip the light switch and it goes on, that cycle is complete. You don't have to loop. You don't have to turn it on and off to make sure it comes on, because you turned it on, you got the feedback, it's done. Right? You move on. Every human brain, in fact, all humans operate on testing. It's called the TOTE system, okay, in psychocybernetics, TOTE. It means test, thought, operate, test, exit, TOTE. You have a thought, I'll turn on the light. You operate, meaning you go to the light switch and flip it. You test to see if you confirm that action had the desired result, and then you exit the system. You go brush your teeth. You go do something else. You don't keep test, operate, right? You don't do that. That would be crazy.
Yes.
That would be insane. People that do that, there are people who do that, right? People with OCD, they wash their hands, and then they go wash their hands again, and then they go wash their hands again. They can't exit the system. So when you spoke to me last, I said operate, meaning go have an honest conversation with the person. Get it complete for yourself. Hear what he's got to say what you got to say, and then exit that system. Meaning, go do something else with your life. Stop thinking about it. Stop talking about it. Stop worrying about it.
Can I add something?
You didn't do that. Do you understand that you did not do that?
So, yes.
You did something else.
I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do. Actually, I'm just going to say something, and I'm prepared if you're going to tell me that I'm not being honest. But when I was working on my project before graduating, one day he sat next to me. He was actually sitting next to me to help me with my project for 3 weeks. But one day he seemed to be extremely sexually attracted.
And how do you tell the difference between his sexual attraction and your sexual attraction?
I mean, he was aroused and extremely.
What, did he get an erection?
He had a really hard time controlling himself.
Did he get an erection and start breathing hard? I mean, how do you
in
know he was aroused? Come on.
He seemed to be in severe anguish and couldn't even breathe. And there were so many times when he wanted to talk to me, and I didn't, and I had inadvertently ignored him because I was too busy and my head was in my own work. And then I thought that I was responsible for being, because I was friendly with him, that he had become attracted to me. So actually, the reason I had this meeting with him was because I thought that I had ignored him so many times that I wasn't available, and he seemed heartbroken. And when he was having this interaction with me, I felt like he was taking some kind of revenge.
Okay, and you told me that because?
I remember that you always say that we should never pursue a man, so I don't want to ask him for a conversation, even though it's for his sake. But I was advised to do so, but I still wasn't planning to do it that day. I was planning to just discuss my studies with him.
You're doing it again?
Yes.
Okay. Now, does anybody ever stop you? Or do the people in your life generally let you repeat the same things over and over and over with no point to them? No, there's no end point. There's no place that you're actually going. You're just like saying the same story over and over.
Well,
and my job is to have you catch yourself.
Yes.
Okay? Now, it's not my job. I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart. I don't have to. Yes. Do you understand? You're just repeating yourself. You're doing it now. You're trying to talk on top of me. You've called my show. You've repeated yourself over and over and over. I pointed out to you that you repeated yourself over and over, and that I don't believe you 100%, and I think that you're kidding yourself. I then ask you, what's your evidence for these things that you're saying about him, but you ignore that I ask you that and talk on top of me. And then when I let you talk, you just go on and on saying stuff that you said 5 weeks ago and that you've already repeated at least once or twice on this show today. So I'm going to stop you now. You're not listening. You're not a request for coaching. You don't care what I'm going to say. No matter what I told you to do, if I told you the exact thing that would handle this for you and him forever, for the rest of your life, and you would never have to think about it again, you will not do it, and you won't hear it. So my advice to you is the same advice that I gave you 5 weeks ago. Either speak with him or don't speak with him, but move on with your life. He doesn't want you. And whether you want him or not is completely immaterial. It's inappropriate. He's your teacher, and he's told you, and now you've revealed to me today that he told you in a very assertive manner that you and him are never going to be together. Listen, one advice I would give you about men is you should take them for their word. When they tell you something like that, they mean it. And you don't have to like it, and it may hurt, and it may take you a while to get over it, but you need to. Part of growing. You will be rejected in life, ladies and gentlemen. You don't always get what you want, and sometimes you get what you need. But if you keep chasing about something that's not for you, listen, there's people in your life that are for you. You should look for them and find them. There are people who will spend their life with you, who will be for you, who will cherish you, care for you, support you, love you, respect you. And there's some who will use you up or reject you entirely. They're just not for you, okay? Don't hang out with. Why would you spend 1 calorie of your energy on somebody who has said, I don't want you, and we're not going to ever be together? Why would you waste your time? I wouldn't even think about it. Okay, I got it. But you're more committed to your story, this long, complex story about how you were injured and in pain and you looked terrible and, he got very sexually aroused sitting next to you and all this romance, supposed story, romantic fable about some love that's never going to happen anyhow. Get over it.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right? You're welcome. Thank you. Here, sometimes love is tough. You just got to be ruthlessly compassionate. Sometimes in order to make a difference with somebody that's not listening, you have to say it in a way that the gentle way doesn't work. So today we've been talking about codependent relationships versus interdependent relationships. And I'm doing this for a number of reasons, mainly because it's a conversation that needs to be had in this community and in all communities, but also is to give you the opportunity to have interaction with me regarding where you may be stuck in some of your relationship issues. And it doesn't have to be relationships. Everybody is given a model or a pattern that is inborn in us. And that pattern is designed to have us survive, not only survive the physical circumstances of life, but to survive by being right, by making others wrong, by appearing to be the good person and the other person's bad, so that we can feel better about ourselves, so that we could belong to a group or a clique or a tribe of people. And why? In order to better assure our survival. To be loved and appreciated and respected and honored and thought well of, in order to what? In order to better ensure our survival. Because built deeply into our bones, into our genetic, into our muscles and our nervous system is the knowledge from billions of years of evolution that those who are at the center of the herd, at the center of the tribe, at the center of the clique or the social group, are the ones who are the most assured of survival, have the most resources, the most opportunities, the most possibilities, and the ones on the outer edges, the ones that are alone or rejected or standing outside the group, are the most vulnerable to predators. They have the least amount of support. So we're all trying to get in to some kind of a belonging situation where we could feel safer. And so, the question has been brought up time and time again, is love an actual thing, or is it a survival mechanism created by the subconscious mind in order to assure our survival? To be loved, to love others. Was it something that was biochemically developed in the brain in order to better assure that we would have a better opportunity to have more resources? There's been a lot of studies, for example, people feel a natural affection and attraction towards big eyes, okay? Big eyes, shiny hair, shiny teeth, okay, or white teeth. People, human beings, feel a natural attraction towards that. If you look, you'll see that small children have shiny hair, big eyes, and white teeth, generally. We have a sort of a feeling towards them, like we want to take care of them, protect them, love them. Aren't they cute and adorable? We like little animals that have big eyes, okay? When you're looking at all those videos of cats and animals and puppies and things like that, it's because they have big eyes, and so I'm just citing one of the physical traits that naturally engender an affectionate feeling. So why is there a multi-billion-dollar eye makeup industry? Okay, why is there billions of dollars spent every year on colored contact lenses and eyelashes and eyebrows and eye plastic surgery and so forth, so as to make the eyes appear bigger and more endearing or more attractive? Okay, so that's just one example of how we are programmed to have affectionate feelings towards certain things or certain objects, certain colors, engender a feeling of either safety and warmth and warm-heartedness. Others have a feeling of danger or edginess to them. The reason I'm covering all of that is because the model that we have inherited from our ancestors of romantic relationships is one based on what is at least questionable. Part of it could be just biochemical responses. You don't have a choice over what you're attracted to a certain extent. You will be attracted to certain skin colors, certain eyes, certain kind of smells, certain kind of movements, certain shapes will attract you more than others. And, that's just that. Some of it's inherited from your culture, whatever culture you grew up in, that's what was considered beautiful. And so you considered it beautiful too. And so you inherited that. But very, very little of it is self-generated. So that's the part that I want to get to when we're talking about interdependent relationships, because in order to be in an interdependent relationship, a relationship that is designed to overcome obstacles and to use those obstacles or challenges as a means for growing stronger, more bonded, and more self-reliant, not more codependent, more self-reliant. A relationship like that is designed, well, first of all, it doesn't just happen. It just doesn't just happen. It takes consciousness. It takes personal self-development and self-growth to do that. In order to be in a position to be in an interdependent relationship, and I know I'm using a word that you maybe not even know what it means yet. I'm going to explain it. I'm not going to leave you hanging. First, I'm going to say that relationships, all relationships, yours, your growth and development, will go through different stages. And one stage that you inherited is, I'm incomplete. In other words, the background conversation in this stage one is, I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm here or what I'm about. I feel kind of lost and empty inside. I need something to fulfill me. In other words, to fill me up. And that kind of fulfillment is filling a hole. There's a hole and you're looking for something to put in that to fill it up so you don't feel the pain of that emptiness. You don't feel the absence of that emptiness. So you get somebody that looks right, smells right, moves right, says the right words, and you put them in that hole to fill that up. But they're doing the same thing, you see. Because when you're in that's a codependent relationship. When you're in a codependent relationship, or you're on that level of personal self-development where the unspoken statement is, I need someone to help me feel whole. And then the positive side of that is, you complete me. So you hear all these songs and poems and poetic sayings about, I feel complete with you. The dark side of that is, I can't live without you, right? The bright side of that is, I know myself by knowing you. The dark side of that is, if I can't have you, no one can. There's a bright side and a dark side to this kind of relationship, you see. That kind of relationship always has a time span on it. It expires. It runs out. Because, and this is a good thing, because the spirit, the self, the whole, seeks to know itself and become whole. So I'm going to say that again, because you, who you really are, your true self, seeks its own self-fulfillment. It seeks its own wholeness and full self-expression. It seeks to come into the light, if you will, and be known for what it really is and to make a difference in the world. So that self, the self with a big S, the one I'm speaking to, it will never rest until it's fulfilled. So that's kind of the good news, really. That's the good news, because ultimately your self-fulfillment, your enlightenment, your completion, if you will, is kind of a done deal, because your soul will not rest until that's arrived. But the sooner that you can move through this stage of, I need somebody to complete me, and get on to another stage, then the next stage is, I don't need anybody, I'm just fine. Okay, so maybe you, very often when people have had their hearts broken, they've gone through a divorce, or they've had some major rejection or something like that, they go into an inquiry, or often studying and reading up about relationships or philosophy or religion, or they go and meditate or something for a while, and they begin to have some realizations, and they begin to have a sort of awakening, because they spend some time with their own inner self. They do some honest questioning about, what their life's about, and maybe what was their part in that fiasco that just happened, that breakup or that loss, and how could they be responsible for it. So they kind of come to a first stage of awakening, which is, you know what? I'm responsible for my life. That's a good thing. I'm responsible for my life, and I'm responsible for who's in my life. I'm responsible for my feelings. I'm responsible for how my life turns out and whether I'm a success or a failure. And so they begin to take a hold of their life, and that's a good stage to be in. But it's only one stage, because here's the problem with that one. You only attract people, and you are attracted to people who are on this kind of the same level or stage of development that you are. So you may meet somebody else and they don't need you either. It's possible to have a relationship at that level, whereas like, I don't really need you and you don't really need me, and we don't, we're independent. And, I have affection for you, and I care for you, and you care for me, and so that's a good thing. So very often you have two people who will even go so far as to marry and have kids and everything, but they don't grow out of that stage of development. Unspoken conversation that's deep in the background in that one is, I love you, but I'm only using you until something better comes along. How many people do you know that are in relationships like that, or how many of you have been in that kind of a relationship where it's like, I love you and you love me, and so this is good for now. okay? But you never say the for now part. You pretend that this is it, and you hope this is it, and you act as if this is it, and you tell everyone this is it, but hidden in your own heart, you know that this is not it, and you're hoping that something better is going to come along or that things will change. So that's a level of development, but at least there's a certain level of responsibility in this, and it's 1,000 times better than, I need someone to fulfill me. No, I will fulfill myself, thank you very much, right? And so you have these two people who are in I call it a 50-50 relationship. I'm responsible for my part and you're responsible for your part. You could base an entire career we have on people who are in those kind of relationships and the codependent kind. Now, there's another kind of relationships that don't really most people never get to, that I'm calling interdependence, where you've gone past this stage of I don't really need anyone. I'm happy and whole and healthy and complete. If I need some money, I can get some money for myself. If I need, I'm happy with the things that I do with my life. I'm happy of the direction it's going in. I have a hope and I'm inspired about the future, and I would welcome someone in my life to make this journey with me, to share my life with. Not because I need to, not because I'm lonely, not because life isn't going to be perfect either way, but because I can. Because I have extra time, money, resources, extra love, extra energy that I want to share with another human being because I can. Because why not? Because in doing so, I become more than I already am. I go deeper into life. I discover things that maybe I wouldn't have discovered on my own. And so two people like that, they don't need each other, but they have each other to share with. And they choose to depend on each other because they can, because the other person's dependable. I can choose to depend on my wife because she's dependable. And she can choose to depend on me because I'm dependable. If I'm ever not dependable, if I ever fail, or if she ever fails on something, that I don't make a big deal of it because I'll just deal with it myself. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I need or she needs. We don't need to have each other in order to have a great, happy, successful, fulfilling life. And I'm so happy to do it this way. I'm so happy to have a partner on my journey that is an equal, that is a peer. In all of the other models of relationship, there's always one who's sort of the superior and one who's the inferior. Even if they're almost equal, there's always one who's kind of like the one, right? The empowered one. And so in a interdependent relationship, sometimes that polarity changes. It can be one, the woman one day or one moment or 1 hour or in one domain of their life, and it could be the man in another domain of their life, and they go, each one is saying, well, look, this is what I can bring to the table, and I do this better than you do. And the other one's like, yeah, but I do this part, and I can do that better than you do. And it's like, okay, you do that. I'll depend on you. Not that you couldn't do it yourself. So you see, an interdependent relationship is a relationship of choice. It has more possibility. It has more joy. It has more fun. When things go wrong, it gets resolved quickly because there's really nothing to fight about, and also because each person is there hoping, betting, pulling for, cheering on the success of the other. Each one is there doing whatever they can. It's no longer about my happiness and my self-fulfillment or my success. It's about what can we do together. So I want that person to be 100%. You want that partner to win. You want that partner to succeed. You want that partner to be everything that God put them on the earth to be, so that you get to participate in that. You get to be a part of it. You get to support that and know that it's an expression of your own self-fulfillment as well. So that's a wholly different kind of relationship. All I've done here on this show is be able to describe to you some different levels of relationship. I've drawn a distinction between codependent and interdependent so that hopefully it's a little more clear for you. You can't get someplace if you don't know where you are at. If we dropped you out of an airplane into the middle of the desert, said find water, and if we gave you a map showing you where the water was, is useless if you don't know where you are on that map, okay? You ever go to those displays in these shopping centers, those giant shopping centers, and it's got all this stuff, and you find what you're looking for, oh, it's right there, but you don't know where you are. They always have a little dot that says you are here, right? In relationships, there's where you are and there's where you'd like to be or where you'd want to be, but it's impossible to get there if you don't know where you are right now. So Embrace Growth and all of the seminars and the workshops and everything that we do, the books, the CDs, the DVDs, they're all about having you completely be okay with where you're at. I don't mean you got to like it, but at least know where you're at. Resisting where you're at or pretending that you're not where you're at would be like if you saw one of those maps in the shopping center and you want to go to this shoes place, and a dot says you are here, and you argued with that. Like, no, I don't want to be there. Or, no, I'm not there, I'm over here. Can you see how stupid that would be? Our seminars, our workshops, all of our work is designed to have you figure out and come to terms with where you're at and be good with that, where you're at, and then see where it is that you would like to be. And then we will give you tools and technology and all of the support that you need to get there where you want to go. And sometimes we may say, it's better over here. Sometimes the you that you are now wants to get someplace that may not be your best solution. We will encourage you to get there and get through that if you think that's what you want to do. But we give you the tools to be responsible for your own life. If you have a roadmap telling you where you're at and where you want to be, whose responsibility is it to get yourself there? Always yours. Always yours. And we are all about giving you the power and the tools and the insights so that you could do that. So that's my show today. You've been watching Love Talk. I'm Gregory Morgan. I'll see you back here again next week on Love Talk.
Welcome to the Embrace Growth app. There's a new way to communicate and join in. Create your free account online and sign into the app. Manage your profile on the go and choose between English or Farsi. Register for events and schedule appointments more easily than ever. Stream audio, video, and download books all over Wi-Fi or cellular. Sign up for workshops and seminars right on your phone. And access your audio and video library in the palm of your hand. Take your favorite lessons from Dr. Azita Sayan and Mr. Gregory Morgan with you. Download it today on the App Store. A haven for the weary soul. A source of inspiration and community. Redesigned to bring you meaningful experiences and unforgettable events. We are a worldwide community of vibrant individuals, displayed in the people who are a part of it, from many nations, backgrounds, and beliefs. Through powerful outreach programs, the struggles of everyday life are confronted and conquered, transforming those who participate into the best versions of themselves. One-on-one sessions are available to keep you headed in the right direction, coupled with the best resources to remind you how to live, whether at home or elsewhere. Programs designed for men, providing the building blocks of maturity, commitment, integrity, and leadership, paving the way for productive and fulfilling manhood. Beyond an understanding of masculine leadership is its application in daily life and development into something truly unique. Exclusive training for women, encouraging growth and empowerment through an acceptance of their true identities, redefining interactions, and changing the viewpoint through which life is seen. Embracing the woman within and accessing facets of your personality hidden beneath the surface. Showing our youth the value of integrity and reliability by creating an indwelling desire to succeed with honor, basing the future on a solid foundation of ideals that will guide them through life, leading by example, and showing others how to clearly convey their thoughts in a compelling way, creating a culture of mature leaders who can help others achieve self-confidence and their goals. Real people and real lives are changed for the better. With every event, more are touched and come to an understanding of their place in this world and their community. Embrace Growth is run by a passionate team and led by the diligence and inspiration of Dr. Azita Sayan and Mr. Gregory Morgan, who consistently teach life lessons based on what works, rather than the passing fads of the times.